Now, let's talk to our expert, if Frank in Shropshire will forgive me, Gavin Hayes, who is a seismologist and best placed to inform us just exactly what happened, Gavin, today. Gavin, welcome to the show.
Hello, George. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on at this late hour. Just tell us, if you would, in layman's terms, what actually happened.
Well, at about, what would it have been? About 5:45 UK time, earlier this morning, a magnitude 8.9 earthquake happened on the subduction interface just offshore Japan. So this is a very large and broad plate boundary fault that moved over a stretch of about 350 kilometers by 150 kilometers, moved over 10 meters towards the ocean over a period of about 2.5 minutes. And so it's that movement, that huge movement of the fault that generated the very large earthquake and the tsunami that's propagated all around the Pacific Ocean.
Now, this is a well-known fault line, isn't it? Is it regularly active? And when was the last time it was active on anything like this scale?
It is a very well-known fault line. This particular subduction zone has been very active in the past at levels of about magnitude 7 to 8 earthquakes. Certainly there's a long history of earthquakes in that range. There isn't a known historic earthquake of this size, of the magnitude 8.9 size, in the historic record. There is some evidence of that in the prehistoric record. So we knew the fault was a hazard. We knew that it had the surface area capable of generating such a large earthquake, but we also knew that it hadn't happened in historic times.
Now, of course, if Japan hadn't been such a wealthy and well-organized country, we might have been looking at millions of deaths, looking at the scale of this.
Certainly, these issues are complicated to figure out. We know that in Haiti, a magnitude 7 earthquake, which is 1,000 times, or almost 1,000 times smaller than this magnitude 8.9 earthquake, caused over 200,000 deaths. But what we have to take into account is both the depth of the earthquake. That earthquake in Haiti was much shallower than this earthquake in Japan, and also the how nearby the energy release of that earthquake is to the population center.
Yeah, Gavin, let me just take you back. Let me take you back a minute, Gavin, because most people, including me, can't get our heads around dimensions on this. You're saying, are you, that this earthquake off Japan was 1,000 times bigger than the one that struck Haiti?
That's approximately right, yes. 1,000 times the energy release. A magnitude 9 would be 1,000 times bigger than a magnitude 7. And Haiti was a magnitude 7, and this 8.9 earthquake is very close to a magnitude 9, yes. So 1,000 times the energy release in this earthquake.
I mean, that's mind-boggling for many, I suspect. And we hear statistics tossed around by amateurs like me and like Fred the Cabbie earlier, which say that this earthquake is, 10 times bigger than the one in New Zealand. But from what you're saying, it must be thousands of times bigger than the one in New Zealand.
If we're talking about the magnitude 6.3 earthquake in New Zealand in February, then yes, it's orders of magnitude bigger.
Well, I mean, where does this stop, Gavin? Forgive the ignorance of this question, but I mean, theoretically, could Japan be wiped out by this earthquake fault line just off its coast?
We know, based on how we observe the movements of the tectonic plates, we know that offshore Japan, the Pacific plate is converging with Japan at a rate of about 8 centimeters a year. And so it only builds up energy on that time scale. And once that energy has been released in one of these earthquakes, at least over the section that moved in this earthquake, it's unlikely to release that scale of energy again. So what we have to worry about for this particular plate boundary is not the part that's moved during this earthquake, but the adjacent sections that haven't moved to the north and to the south.
So there's a perfectly logical reason why this happened. You wouldn't maybe have been listening at the beginning of the show, but we had the usual crop of conspiracy theorists quoting this madman, David Icke, who's apparently claiming that some kind of undersea weapon was deliberately ignited, deliberately causing this kind of shock. I'm assuming that you can categorically rule this out and rule out other irrational ideas that, like, it's the beginning of the tribulation and the beginning of the end of the world and so on. There are scientific and rational, logical explanations for this.
Definitely, and there have been many scientific papers published on the fact that this particular fault line offshore Japan has been locked, or this section of the fault line offshore Japan has been locked, which means it hasn't moved for a long period of time. And so, in some sense, it was just a matter of time before it unlocked in an earthquake and released the energy that we've seen has been released in this earthquake. So
Gavin, you've been very, very helpful to us, Gavin. I appreciate it very much indeed. Gavin Hayes, seismologist, helping us through the science, if you like, of the pictures that we're all so horrified by just this 24 hours.